Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining the Zera Shimshon Midrash Rashi weekly Parsha class. This week's Parsha is going to be Parshat Bo, which discusses the last three plagues and the preparation of our exodus of Egypt. So before we learn the series, there is a special before and after prayer. I am learning Leilui Nishmat, the Mechaber of the Sefer Rabbeinu Shimshon Chaim ben Rav Nachman Michael, Me'etbir Will Ribono Shel Olam, that the words he wrote in the introduction to his Sefer come true in the three categories he mentioned: children, health, and parnasa. And this week's Parsha has a couple of sponsors and dedications, so I'm going to go ahead and read the list. This week's Parsha is dedicated to the following people for the following categories: health, wealth, happiness, salvation, inner peace, serenity, mental health, zivug, proper and healthy upbringing of children, inner strength, and growth in Torah. Tzvika ben Esther Rivka Liat bat Miriam, Leah Bracha bat Rivka Liat, Yaakov Israel ben Rivka Liat, Esther bat Margalit, Miriam bat Sarah, YEHUDA ARYEH ben Esther, Nisim ben Miriam, Shmuel ben Esther, Keren bat Miriam, Teila bat Keren, Batya bat Keren, Chaya Shena bat Gitel, Razel bat Rochel, Rain and Lev ben Razel, Miriam Fruma bat Devorah Golda, Sharel ben Ronit, Daniel Yosef ben Devorah Golda, David Shlomo ben Devorah Golda, Aaron Yitzchak ben Pava, and to my very special Rav in Florida, Rabbi Noble, Rabbi Moshe Reuven ben Rachel, or Rachel. And this Parsha is also dedicated to Ilui Nishmat, in memory of Nachman Tzvi ben Chaya, Margalit bat Zion, Sarah bat Rachel, Aaron ben Miriam, Eliyahu ben Nachman Tzvi, Miriam bat Esther, Zechariah ben Adizai, Shmuel ben Miriam, Rafael ben Yehuda Leib, Leah Temima bat Reuven, Rabbi Reuven Tzvi Bauman ben Esther Bela, and for more recently, very sad news. Someone very young that has passed away, related to someone that's part of our group. YEHUDA ARYEH ben Chaim TUVIA HaLevi. May their neshamas have an aliyah, and may we all pick something that we could learn from in this week's Parsha and spread the light. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to continue with Zera Shimshon. In the beginning. Okay, so I'm going to be covering book number 2 of Zera Shimshon, this one, and I'm going to start off with page 166. So it says over here, his heart was hard. So I'm going to read a little bit of the Hebrew and then some of the English. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe bo el Paro ki ani ichbadti et libo. Hashem said to Moshe, "Come to Pharaoh, for I have made his heart and the heart of his servants hardened, so that I can place these signs of mine in his midst." The Midrash in Shemot Rabbah, chapter 11, verse 7, and Yafet Toar there, tells us that Pharaoh hardened his heart against Hashem during the first 5 plagues. During the second 5, however, it was Hashem who hardened Pharaoh's heart and convinced him not to let Bnei Israel leave. On the surface, this is a little difficult to understand. How could Hashem send Moshe Rabbeinu to Pharaoh with the command, "Let my people go," if he knew that Pharaoh couldn't do so? Where's the fairness in the warning if the person receiving the warning cannot obey it? Zera Shimshon explains that Hashem could not possibly have taken away Pharaoh's free will, and that everything was still left up to the stubborn king. Wait a second. Doesn't the pasuk say Hashem hardened Pharaoh's heart? Yes, and this is exactly what it means. The first 5 plagues were relatively easy for Pharaoh and the Egyptians to withstand, and the king did not allow them to sway his judgment. The second 5 plagues, on the other hand, were much, much harder, and Pharaoh and his people would have been forced to give in, just to stop the terrible torment. Yet here Hashem gave Pharaoh the strength to resist the temptation of admitting defeat. We find a similar idea in Masechet Sanhedrin, which points out that Hashem grants sinners the strength to accept their punishment in Gehenom. Here too, Hashem gave Pharaoh the strength he needed so that the plagues didn't seem as harsh as they really were. And he was able to convince himself that the second group of 5 wasn't all that bad, just as he did with the first 5. But there is no question that even when Hashem sent Pharaoh the hardest, most challenging plagues, his free will was never taken away from him. He had merely wanted to do the right thing, even a little bit. He would have been able to send the Jewish people out to the wilderness, but he didn't want to, not even a little bit. And so the Jewish people remained in Egypt until the story reached its inevitable conclusion. There's another point I want to bring up over here. When Hashem said, Bo el Paro, come to Pharaoh, he didn't say go. He said come. What's the difference between go and come?
Go is leaving, coming is going towards something. It's like, no, that doesn't make sense. Like go is like going away from you, and coming is like towards you.
And why did it need to say come and not go?
Repeat the sentence.
Why did it need to say come, not go?
No, repeat the sentence from the Zera Shimshon. Like repeat the pasuk kind of thing.
Okay. Well, I'm going to explain a little bit what the Zohar elaborates on this specific sentence. When Hashem said, come to Pharaoh, he's basically saying, you're not going to find him at all without my help. You can't go on your own. You're not going to find him. The evil back in Mitzrayim was so intense, Moshe Rabbeinu wouldn't have been able to find Pharaoh. So when he told Moshe, come, he basically told Moshe, come, take my hand, and I will take you to Pharaoh. Because only with me, only by holding my hand, you would be able to go through Pharaoh.
See that, okay, I understand that there was a lot of evil, very intense evil back then, but it's so thick that you can't find somebody. I mean,
yeah, he actually used magic. His magicians weren't even able to find him. They were looking for him all over the place. It says it in the Zohar. His magicians were not able to find him. No one was able to find him. He managed to create a room that was multi-dimensional, that was literally in between dimensions, and it was guarded by a 3-headed dog.
That's where they get it from?
Yes.
No, I thought that was from Zeus or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the heaviest black magic ever done.
See,
So what is that? So what does that tell us? That in itself. What do we need to do if we want to defeat evil?
You have to be the extreme opposite.
You have to cling on to Hashem. Taking Hashem's hand and walking with Hashem everywhere you go. That's the only way how a person can beat not just evil, his Yetzer Hara, his ego, anything that's associated with that. Now I want to move on to this is also an interesting aspect. I want to move to another topic in the Zera Shimshon. Why the firstborn died at the stroke.
Wait, hold on. I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why would Pharaoh create a 3-dimensional or interdimensional room? What for?
Well, what do you think? He was getting slapped from every single direction.
I mean, besides for an escape room, it just seems like there's something deeper. I don't know. There's just something is like, there's just something, I don't know, maybe
Yeah, well,
he wants,
all of
maybe
the
he,
Egyptians, including the magicians, they were all begging Pharaoh, let them go already, let them go. They're destroying Egypt. Let them go, let them go, let them go. And he wanted his own time to think without being bothered by anybody. And that's when he created that multi-dimensional room. That no one was able to find him, so he could think to himself.
I'm thinking he wanted to maybe show, oh, you think you're all that great? I can be just as untouchable, if you want to, if not untouchable as an escapee, but as untouchable on the other side of the spectrum. Do you understand what I'm saying?
100%, yeah, and I agree with it.
That's the way how.
Yeah, it could very much be that he felt that he was untouchable and wanted to be untouchable, but Hashem proved him that he's very much touchable.
And that he can't really hide.
Yeah, and that he can't hide.
I think it was more he was trying to hide, and from everybody, including Hashem, maybe you can't find me, right? Make as many dimensions as you can, but ultimately, you can't hide from Hashem. Hashem proves that no matter what you do, you can't hide from me. So what?
Yeah.
And wasn't the three-headed dog anyways hounds?
Yes.
Because they were hounds.
Yes.
Wait, there were hellhounds?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
They were called. It's an actual breed. It does actually exist. It's an actual breed. They're called pharaoh hounds. They literally are Egyptian-looking hound dogs. You can look it up on a later time. You can look up the breed pharaoh hounds, and those were the hounds.
Yeah, some people call it pharaoh hounds. Some people call it hellhounds.
No, I'm saying it's an actual dog breed.
Yeah.
It's pharaoh hound.
Oh, really?
Yes, there's an actual.
Wow.
I had one. She was crazy. She was a good, nice dog, but I found out that her breed, because they didn't know what she was from the pound, was classified as a pharaoh hound. It's an actual dog breed.
Okay.
Crazy, I know.
All right, so moving on to the next section of Zera Shimshon. Why the firstborn died at the stroke of midnight. This one's like a good one. It is in the night of anticipation for Hashem to take out of the land of Egypt. This is the night for Hashem, of protection for all the children of Israel for their generations. So, Sifsei Kohen on this pasuk points out that the first half of the night is called Leil, signifying judgment, which is din, while the second half of the night, from Chatzot and onward, signifies mercy and is called Laila. If we are separating between the two sections of the night, if they are two disparate entities, why does the pasuk refer to Leil Shmurim, night of anticipation, as Hu halayla hazeh? This is the night. To understand this, we need to understand why Hashem specifically waited to kill the Egyptian firstborn at the stroke of midnight. If the plague would have commenced during the first third quarter of the night, it would have happened at a time of night that is only for din. And the Midah of din would have had plenty of time to rise up and kill Bnei Israel as well, which may have resulted in a massive tragedy for the Jewish nation. Hashem therefore waited until the last possible moment before midnight. And when that moment passed, at midnight struck, he carried out the plague against the Egyptian firstborn, leaving no leeway for the Midah of din to do any damage, because once midnight arrived, It was replaced by the midah of rachamim, of mercy, for the rest of the night. That is why the pasuk mentions both Leil and Laila. Because Ribono Shel Olam carried out the final plague of judgment against Mitzrayim just before midnight, when it was barely still Leil, in as close proximity as he could to the oncoming time of Laila, which is the time of mercy. Also, if you take the Hebrew word for Leil, which is Lamed Yud Lamed, and Laila, Lamed Yud Lamed Hey, Leil doesn't have the Hey, right? Only Laila does. So we know Hashem as a merciful God. So we could see over here that the first part is considered Leil, sorry. It doesn't have the Hey, doesn't have the mercy, doesn't have Hashem. The second part of Chatzot, the second part of the night is called Chatzot, and that has the Hey, that has the mercy of Hashem. So, do you have any questions on this? Anybody have any questions on this?
I have two things. Maybe God is waiting for judgment to pass through now, like we talked about. Maybe if Biden gets sworn in, maybe the judgment will pass for the good to happen. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Like we've had this conversation off camera. But yeah, you know what I'm saying. So like, that's what I'm thinking about if Biden does get sworn in, because it's very correspondent to the Parsha. Also, a second thing is, how will the whole correspondent be for modern day of the whole cry that was heard throughout Egypt?
I think we're going to be witnessing that very shortly.
Okay, so I'm guessing like 24, 48 hours shortly. I mean, because like what I'm thinking is, I'm thinking about, it's going to be more than that meme that came out about the Dems crying for the crayons and Play-Doh. Okay, that like I think it's I think it's going to be, I don't know, what do you think?
I don't know. Like I said, in the chat previously today.
Yeah.
I think I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut and just
Okay.
see how things unfold.
Do you want me to send over some popcorn?
Oh, we got popcorn and she's got a rock. I mean, she good.
Is that what she's drinking over there? No, I'm playing.
Not in that cup, no. Honestly though, like it in regards to like, how does it correlate with modern times, like what we're seeing now with like the crying or whatever? People have been crying.
Yeah,
and
there is a great cry right now on the whole presidential loss.
There's a big cry, and people are they're crying with words. They're saying they don't like it. There's pictures. There's this. There's a big cry, so to speak, that's going on. I think at this point, though, is it enough where it's over? It's more than 50%.
I definitely think so.
51%, because in this week's Parsha, that's what it was. There was enough cry and enough of everything where Hashem did do these miracles, and we merited to leave Mitzrayim. And that's what, we're not going to know 100% until that day it happened.
No, I think it's gonna happen. I don't think it has happened yet. I think it's gonna be very magnified based on like what we've discussed today. I don't think we hit the eye of the storm yet with the cry and everything above. I don't think. I think we hit maybe I don't know. I'm throwing out numbers: 10, 20%, 25%. I don't
In
know.
my humble opinion, we are literally right before the grand finale.
We already hit the eye of the storm. The eye of the storm is the calm period.
Yep.
It's very calm in the eye of the storm. We already passed that. There was a lot of calm. There was nothing going on, no chatter. Now the chatter is back. Now we're seeing the ending part, the last of the storm. The only reason why I can say that is because I'm very familiar with hurricanes. And if you look at the eye of the storm in a hurricane, it's very calm. And then all of a sudden the destruction comes right after you get before calm. It didn't really get, but it got calmer. And then the back end comes, and that back end is worse sometimes.
Yeah.
Than that
Really?
time. Yeah. Sometimes it gets that last hurrah in. Just saying.
I think we may have 5 of those. You just
But I
face
will agree with Becca here. We already passed the eye.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're way past that.
I mean, I think we are in the middle. I don't know. Listen, this is the way how I'm experiencing it. We're leaving the eye, but I think tomorrow we're gonna be hitting the back end, as you explained it.
I honestly hope so. I honestly really, really, really hope so. Look, eventually, at some point, evil has to get eradicated.
Yeah.
How it's going to get eradicated, only God knows. I just hope it's not going to be as bloody as I saw it being. That's all I have to say on that.
With your tone of voice, I hope so too.
All right, let's continue to Midrash. Now I'm going to be talking a little bit about the 8th, 9th, and 10th plague. So, sorry. Okay, so the 8th plague was grasshoppers, ARYEH. And why do I want to discuss this? Because the 8th plague already passed, at least over here in Vegas, because we had that plague 2 years ago.
This is the ending of, yeah, it was in the
Was it 2018 or 2019, 2020?
19, I think.
2019.
I think so.
Literally, it was grasshoppers here were everywhere. No joke.
The strip was flooded. with
Oh
them.
God, no one was able to walk on the strip.
They couldn't even. They couldn't even open the doors
Exactly.
because they were going in.
And it's really funny how the grasshoppers hit Vegas, because remember how last time we were discussing how the plagues,
Hold on. When did we have the snowfall?
2019.
Last year, yeah.
Yeah,
It was
2 years ago. 2 Februarys ago
It was after that. So yeah, it was in 2019 because it was after that.
that we had the grasshoppers.
We had the grasshoppers.
Okay. So why am I saying it's a little bit funny that Vegas got grasshoppers? Remember how last week we were discussing how each plague was correlating with the 10 Commandments? So the 8th plague correlates with thou shalt not steal.
You mean the government? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Vegas, man, gambling.
I'm
Like,
totally
Sin
playing.
City.
I'm totally playing. Dude, I got you to face palm twice within 5 minutes.
I could sit there and say how Vegas, where gambling and stealing goes. My dad used to work in the casinos. I had a stepfamily that does some of the stuff with sportsbook. Anyways, needless to say, it's rigged. All the stuff is rigged to take your money. They steal it. They don't want you to actually win. So it's 100% stealing in that sense. Because the odds of winning are not there. I love it because they'll broadcast people that have won, and you got to put it to yourself, did they actually win? And how much money did they take from them before they won that small amount? So yeah, it's pretty big here in that sense. That's why the strip was the most covered.
Yeah.
With the grasshopper plague, the strip was the most covered. It was horrible. It was
Even over here around the
disgusting.
corner in Albertsons, it was insane.
Even that complex. That was gross. I don't know.
So, all right, I want to move on to plague number 9, which is darkness. And I have a feeling that this is what we're in right now. We're probably coming towards the end of it and about to experience the 10th one before the official Exodus. So the 9th plague is darkness, choshech. And what is so weird about this one? With choshech, it was so bad in Mitzrayim that not only it was dark and they couldn't see, the darkness became tangible. It was so thick, they were able to feel it. It's kind of like you can hear the silence. When it's so quiet, you can actually hear silence. You were actually able to feel darkness.
No,
And this
some of them
darkness-
couldn't. Some of them couldn't actually move. I think.
Yes,
for like 3
exactly.
days.
It says that the darkness was so bad that people needed to stay inside their homes and could not move. That's what's going on right now with the pandemic
In certain parts of the world.
in a lot of areas of the world. And not just this darkness was tangible. It's not only physical. We right now are experiencing a massive spiritual darkness, a darkness that's very hard for many people to snap out of. You know, when we're looking at the galuyot, when we're looking at all the times that we were saved, this is supposed to be our last redemption, B'ezrat Hashem. You know, with Egypt, it was a physical redemption, but we had, in a way, no choice. We took the Torah upon us, Naseh v'nishma. We will do, and then we will hear what you have to say. In Purim, it was also a physical redemption, but it was more of, I want the Torah, I want Hashem, because we want it. But we were physically saved. This time around, ladies and gentlemen, is a spiritual redemption. Anyone who wants to be redeemed will be redeemed.
And to spiritual, that leads into physical.
Yeah.
I said it, Miriam couldn't hear me because I said, look, it's a spiritual redemption that will lead into a physical redemption.
B'ezrat Hashem.
Because it says numerous times, Hashem will only build the Beis HaMikdash one more time. The third one is the final one.
And that's going to be coming from Hashem himself.
Hashem himself. So therefore, that it makes sense that it would be a spiritual redemption.
Yeah.
That leads into a physical redemption, because we got to look at history of what happened with the previous temples.
Yeah. Another thing that I wanted to add with darkness, one of the 10 commandments that it correlates to is thou shalt not bear false witness. Don't lie. Lying. Being deceitful.
Well, that's relevant with recently.
How relevant it is for today. It's absolutely crazy, insane how we're seeing all of these connections taking place. And Baruch Hashem, that Hashem is giving us the opportunity to open our eyes and to see. There's so much darkness around us. And yet we're seeing truth. We're seeing who's lying. What are you looking for? You want the pencil? So it's not stam that all of this is unfolding in a way that's correlating with today's world as it's going on right now.
It just like it makes you think, what is considered spiritual redemption? Like what? It just like makes you think. Makes me think. You know, like what will be considered that? How can you consider that?
Say that again. I'm sorry, I
And
couldn't
what
hear you.
aspects with saying with modern with what will be considered a spiritual redemption? How can you consider that to be a spiritual redemption? What would the steps be for that? Like that's the way how what's going through my mind.
I'm still trying to understand what is your question. How is what's going to be a spiritual redemption? How is this Geula going to be a spiritual redemption?
No, like what will be considered?
What will be considered a spiritual redemption? Okay. When you're learning Torah and you see how a lot of things in the Torah correlates to either current events or events that are relevant to your life, and you're able to learn and observe and grow, change your hashkafa, that is your own spiritual redemption.
So that it makes you think, if I only did 10%, would you be worthy? If you did 20%, would you only be worthy? If you did 1%?
Okay. I asked this question, that first of all, that was according to Sdom and Amorah, which is very different from today, even though a lot of people say it's very similar. I had my mom, someone asked me that question in my group, like, how would we know if we're going to be marrying to Geula, a redemption that's with mercy or with judgment? So I asked, my mom reached out to a very special rabbi in New York, Rabbi Yenon Kalazan. And he specializes, he is like the Torah Tanakh specialist. And he says that it states, I don't remember where it states in the, I don't know if it was in the Gemara, but somewhere I could try to get the sources, remind me, and I'll, tell you after the lecture, B'ezrat Hashem. But he says all it takes is 51%. If 51% have opened their eyes, have seen the light, want to be part of good, want to be part of Hashem, then that's already enough to bring the redemption in mercy. But if it's 51% that is still stuck in lies and deceit and tattling on one another and, trying to, for lack of better words, screw one another, then it's going to be with judgment. But if you want my humble opinion, my intuitive humble opinion, I don't think we're at 51% with judgment. I honestly think that there's 51% at least, and it's not just with the Jews, it's in total with the world. We're at the 51% of having their eyes opened. How much spiritual awakening has been going on recently in the past couple of years?
Not much.
A lot.
Oh, you think a
Really
lot?
surprised, a lot.
Oh, I'm living under a rock. No, I know. In all seriousness, I'm thinking of this as more as an individualist based questions. Like, how do you know that you are redeemable? How do I know that I am redeemable? How does he know that he is redeemable? You understand what I'm saying? It's more on a, not as a group base, but more as an individualistic base.
Can you try to say again what?
So back to my question, it's more on an individual base. It's more like, how do I know that I am redeemable? How do you know you are redeemable? How does Joe Schmo down the block know he's redeemable?
I want to ask you a question. I'm going to answer that for you right now.
Yeah.
Has there been a mistake that you've done in your past that you so deeply regretted that you've never done it again?
Oh yeah.
Then you're redeemable. Plain and simple. Then you are redeemable. For the fact that a person is able to overcome that part of him with his Yetzer Hara and change that aspect of himself and grow and change and be better, they are redeemable.
Well, it deals with a lot of
If Pharaoh was redeemable, who are we not to be? Answer that.
I mean, no, that's true. I mean, there's the whole concept that he was spit out of the borders, and then he was a king on another country. Blah blah blah.
He was the king of Nineveh in the time of Jonah.
Yeah. No, it just like it makes you think, because it's like you have this whole laundry list of sins, and then it's like, it's very scary. Who knows? You and Joe Schmo down the block, or the rabbi down the block, or the priest down the block, or the monk up the mountain.
Right. Let me see.
The only thing I didn't write was the electoral college. I was going to talk about how that was the 8th plague and what it was in modern form.
Okay. Jennifer would like to share something that I guess you could say just came to her since it's a chavrut and we're all learning together. I'm going to have Jennifer speak for a little bit.
Okay, so you've been bringing up, Miriam, about modern times, how the Parsha relates to modern times. If we've been paying attention, everything that's been happening has been happening on a Wednesday. Well, January 6th. Yes. January. So
when was the elections?
A Wednesday, November 3rd.
What?
Let me see.
No.
November. Sorry.
Whoa.
Sorry. November 3rd was a Tuesday, but it was at night, which put us to Wednesday.
Wednesday.
That came out on November 4th, which was a Wednesday. Okay, so
Tuesday night is considered Wednesday according to the Jewish calendar.
Right. Okay, so what hit me, and I was writing down on paper, and I was trying to show Becca, was that on the 6th of January, when that thing took place at the Capitol building, they were certifying the votes for the Electoral College. Well, that was the start of the 8th plague, which is
darkness.
No,
sorry.
Locusts.
Yeah.
Grasshoppers.
Yes.
Now, what wasn't being said is what was going on there, but locust was actually in human form. Okay, they swarmed the Capitol in human form.
That's interesting.
Now, so that was Wednesday, and then a week later or following that, you see all the military going on. We don't understand why they're there. We don't understand what's going on, boarding up or whatever, and stuff like that. It's starting to come into play. You hear about it. And on Wednesday last week, you see the House rush for an impeachment. Okay, which we all know how that played out. And so that officially started the plague of darkness. And at that point, we see military starting to get really, really emboldened. We see the boarding up. We have no idea what's going on. No one knows what's going on.
We're in the dark.
We're in the dark. No one knows what's going on. Media is not going to cover it. Nothing like that. So what does that leave us with? Tomorrow is supposed to be the inauguration. Well, if everything's happening on a Wednesday, then one could assume that tomorrow would start the last and final plague.
Which I'm going to get to right now, which is the death of the firstborn.
See, I have a question. What was the third? Sorry, Hadibot is Nochesham lo lecha. I'm blanking out. What's the third one? Nochesham lo lecha. What's the third commandment?
The third commandment. Hold on one second. Let me check.
And then what?
You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain.
They're very anti-God and very pro-science. It's extremely it's very relevant. Trump has already acknowledged God. he already did in a speech about a year ago, something like that. He said the man upstairs. And now my mind is also going to what was created on Wednesday. Was it the moon and the stars?
Yeah, the moon and the sun.
Well, that's very relevant with darkness. And wait a second, the moon was shrunken. Why? So I'm thinking there has to be some kind of correspondence with the moon being shrunk, because the moon, the moon said that he wanted to outshine the sun. They had that whole fight, disagreement, whatever you want to call it. There's I don't know why my mind is going there, but that's where my mind is going there. Like there's some kind of correspondence.
Because in this week's Parsha, they also discuss Rosh Chodesh.
Mhm.
You see, like I said, my mind was going somewhere there, but there's something more. Like I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe I could look into it and I could do another lecture on it, but I need to continue because I'm starting to be a little short with time.
Okay.
Okay, so the 10th plague is the death of the firstborn. Now, firstborns are also considered leaders. When there's a family and chas v'chalila, chas v'shalom, God forbid, let's say if the father, passes away, and who's the one that usually takes the responsibility?
The oldest man.
Firstborn.
Or
the eldest man, the first. So over here, we understand that firstborn is not just literally the ones that are born first, but also leaders. And just so you know, it happens to be that Joe Biden is a firstborn. Just so you know.
No way. Wait. Is Joe Hunter his first son?
I think so.
No.
I think so.
I'm not 100% sure.
I'm not 100% sure, but I know I read that Joe Biden is a firstborn.
And we don't have to talk about the VP.
Yeah.
And you don't have to talk about the what?
VP.
Oh, no, okay.
Okay, so the 10th commandment that correlates with the death of firstborn is thou shalt not covet. How many times do you walk down the street, or a person walks down the street, looks at something else that doesn't belong to him and says, I want that. That should be mine. Jealousy. It's a big problem that's playing in today's day and age.
I think Miriam, you would hit this one pretty big because you're learning Hebrew, and you hear about how a lot of things are about money, needing lots of money. It's like, and it makes you sick.
Well, what? Can you reword that? I'm sorry.
When we because I know you're trying to make ARYEH, Ken, right?
Bezrat Hashem.
Well, I wasn't gonna go this public about it, but yes. Okay,
No,
yes.
No, but
True. Yes. You do. You need to. Yes, you need a couple of zeros in the bank before the decimal point. Yes.
right. So when we hear that, it doesn't feel so good, and
True.
and that plays into this commandment.
It's not about jealousy. I don't feel jealous. It just lowers my vibration. It's like,
No, I'm not saying you feel jealous. I'm not saying you feel jealous. I'm saying in a worldwide view, everything is dependent on money.
Yes.
And that's where this is playing in. I'm not saying that's why your vibration is getting lower when you hear it.
Yeah.
Because it's disgusting, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And what I'm trying to say is that a lot of people have, this issue getting, they have shoes, thank God, that are not ripped or, whatever, but they need to have those Chanel boots. Or they have a car that could take them from point A to point B, but it has to be a Mercedes, or it has to be whatever it is. That's a problem. That's showing Hashem you don't appreciate what he's giving you. And what happens when there's a child that's being unappreciative?
The parents will smack that kid up.
Yep,
You'd hope.
yep. And that's what we're going through. That is what we're going through. So we always have to make sure that we focus on the main point. All right, now I'm going to move on real quick to Rashi. All right, and with the Rashi, it's chapter 12, verse 17. This is, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the matzot, the matzahs. Veshmartam et hamatzot. You shall safeguard the matzahs. In plain sense of the verse, the matzahs must be safeguarded while they are being made, since even a bit of a delay or moisture can cause the grain, flour, or dough to become leavened, meaning more expanded. Since the word cannot be vowelized and read hamitzot, you shall safeguard the commandments. The sages applied this injunction homiletically to all commandments. If a mitzvah comes to your hand, do not allow it to become leavened by delaying its performance. Just as the Jews in Egypt were in such a state of spiritual decline that even a slight delay might have rendered their redemption impossible. So the performance of a single mitzvah without delay may be necessary for the salvation of an individual Jew at any moment. I wanted to talk a little bit about a spiritual aspect regarding the leavening of the bread, the matzahs. I've heard quite a number of shiurim that leavened bread, bread that rises, is in comparison to a person's ego. And one of the main points on Passover, when we look for chametz, when we look for the leavened bread, we have to look within ourselves where we have egotistical points and we try to root it out. And why is it so important to root out ego? Ego is one of the main things that stops us from, what's the word that he uses? Hastily doing mitzvot, like speedily. Yeah. I guess, no, I don't have time for this. I'll do this later. No, I'm a little too busy right now. Ego stops us from doing mitzvot. So I wanted to point out that with this specific Rashi commentary, it's not just, to be a physical safeguard to make sure that the matzahs don't rise or what. It's your ego. It's your ego. You have to make sure that your ego doesn't rise at all times. And one of the best things to do is to just keep learning. When you learn Torah on a constant basis and you strive to grow, your ego gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, especially if you're learning for the right purposes.
I would like to add, can I add? Okay, free association with the Exodus. The first thing that popped into my mind, either this can be after the swearing in tomorrow, or this can be eventually down the road. That I know you guys had, I've had, other people who've also had visions and dreams about a mass exodus towards Israel. Or we all hear metaphorically or literally, we've all heard it, the shofar blowing. I think that's going to happen tomorrow, starting, or on Thursday. I don't think we can deny it at this point, because the Exodus happened very, very quickly. Like, it was like there was no time to pack up. And like I said, like, we've all, most of us, on the chat groups, etc., we've had visions and dreams about this.
Right. And not only that, the mass exodus from Facebook and Twitter and WhatsApp and
I haven't left yet.
I'm still on Facebook, but it's business pretty much. It's not really personal. I have a person on there that I have to share their live score, so that's why I'm there. I don't know when Becca heard the shofar blowing. I don't know when you exactly heard the shofar blowing.
I didn't actually hear it blowing. I just kind of like, you know how when you think you hear a sound in your ear, that's what it was.
Like vibrations.
Yeah.
So I'm not so sure. There was a couple of times, like I said, like I was at work and I heard a distant shofar. A very, very, this was like a couple of months ago. Like I heard, it sounded like an actual shofar. I'm not like, it just like, I was like, what, like, you know, what's going on? And like I said, I've had dreams about mass exodus. Like the only way I can describe it was such a mass exodus. It was like Times Square on New Year's Eve. Like that's how mass of an exodus this was.
Interesting.
I mean, I could talk to you later about it,
Yeah.
you know, off camera, but yeah, definitely.
I can sit here and say Becca found it crazy, but I want to say it was Rosh Hashanah 2018. I always get my years wrong. My son calls me into his room and he says he heard a shofar blowing. He's looking out his window for the shofar. The moment I ran up the stairs to go into his room, we were looking out the window. We were just looking at the mountains, and all of a sudden I heard it too. It was literally like it was right there. It was Rosh Hashanah time, but nobody was at shul. We were not at shul. We were at our house. We heard it. I can verify this again that I have heard that noise again. I want to say a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, this past Rosh Hashanah, we didn't go to shul, you know, because of the whole COVID thing. We stayed at home. And seriously, I am like, what's the word? Tvima. Not gullible, but I so wanted to believe that I would have my own personal shofar blowing. I'm outside davening, you know, in Rosh Hashanah, in the middle of a midah, and when it was saying, like, you know, the blessing, you know, for the shofar, you know, I'm reading the blessing to myself in my mind. I can't say it out loud because I wasn't at the shul, whatever. And I'm standing there quiet, literally, I'm not kidding you, for like 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, Hashem, can you please blow the shofar for me?
I was actually at shul. We went to shul, and I will be there. I'll be honest. We were at shul. We heard the shofar blowing. My son and I both sat there as we were leaving. We're like, we're not coming back. Yeah. We literally decided not to be there for the other holidays because of
Whatever reasons, yeah.
Again, we were only there for the shofar blowing. That was the only reason we were there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, our shul doesn't really take so much precautions. I don't know. I just don't. Anyways. Okay. All right. Anyone have any other questions with what we covered in this week's class?
I'm good.
No? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the conclusion of the closing prayer, which is Tefillah L'Todah, the prayer of thanks. Thank you, Hashem, King of kings and Master of the world. Thank you for the infinite times you have helped me, supported me, rescued me, encouraged me, cured me, guarded over me, and made me happy. Thank you for always being with me. Thank you for giving me the strength to observe your commandments, to do good deeds and pray. Thank you for all the times you helped me and I didn't know how to say thank you. Thank you for all the loving kindness you do for me each and every moment. Thank you for every breath that I breathe. Thank you, Hashem, for all the things that I do have, and thank you, Hashem, even for the things that I don't have. Thank you for my periodic difficulties, my occasional setbacks, and for the times when I don't feel happy, because everything is for my ultimate benefit, even if I don't see that it's always for my best. Deep in my heart, I know that everything comes from you is the very best for me and designed especially for me in precision and exacting divine providence, of which only the King of Kings is capable of. Thank you for the periodic times that are difficult for me, for only that way they enable me to fully appreciate the good times, for only after being in darkness one can appreciate the light. Thank you for the wonderful life you have given me. Thank you for every little thing that I have, for everything comes from you and from no one else. Thank you for always listening to my prayers. creator of the world, I apologize from the bottom of my heart for all the times that I didn't appreciate what you gave me. And instead of thanking you, I only complained. I am dust and ashes, and you're the entire universe. Please don't ever cast me away. So B'ezrat Hashem, next week is going to be Parshat
Yitra.
oh,
Yitra.
that's my Beshalach. Next week's Parsha is Beshalach. It's the splitting of the sea. Oh, that's going to be interesting. I wonder how that's going to unfold with today's time.
Oh my gosh. You know where my mind's going.
100%.
Yes. All right. Thank you.